Hello everyone, I am Mr. Night Truth. I know many of you enjoy listening to these videos as you fall asleep. So before you drift off, I'd love for you to leave a comment letting me know where in the world you're tuning in from. And if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and subscribe. Alright, now let's get comfortable, relax, and let's go down into the story.
Story number 1, I swear. I don't even remember his face. That's what haunts me the most. The security footage shows him staring right at me, like he wanted me to see. But when I close my eyes now, I can't picture him at all. And maybe that's because I knew him already. You ever notice how sometimes you only remember the things you shouldn't? Like, I can't remember what I had for breakfast that morning, or even if I locked my car, but I remember him. Or at least I think I do. Then again, maybe I just filled in the blanks with what people told me later. Either way, the first time I noticed the man in the brown windbreaker, it felt like he'd been there all along, like he'd been waiting for me to finally look his way. I was standing out in the Dollar Tree parking lot on my smoke break. The air was damp and heavy, the kind of late autumn evening where the sky is just a flat sheet of grey. The lights above the lot flickered, like they couldn't quite decide if they wanted to stay alive. I remember the sound of cartwheels squeaking across cracked asphalt. Empty, hollow, like something rolling by itself. That's when I saw him, leaning against the wall just past the dumpster, hood up, shoulders hunched. His jacket was brown, too heavy for the weather, and it hung loose, like it wasn't even his size. He didn't move, didn't light a cigarette. Didn't even check his phone. He just stood there, head tilted slightly down. At least, that's how I tell it now. If I'm being honest, I might have seen him earlier. Maybe even inside the store. I can't really say. Every time I think back, the order of it slips, like the film reel's out of sync. But I do remember the first time I mentioned him out loud. Creepy guy, huh? That was Jess, my coworker. She was the type who laughed when she was nervous, even if her hands shook while she did it. She'd spotted him too, though she pretended like it was nothing. I laughed it off, told her, probably just waiting for someone. We're not exactly the only store on the strip, you know. But the truth is, even then, I knew he wasn't waiting for anyone. He was waiting for us. The shift dragged on. Customers came and went, arms full of cheap party supplies, off-brand snacks, plastic toys that'd break before the week was up. Every time the automatic doors hissed open, I half expected him to step inside. But he never did. Not that night. Not when anyone else could see. When closing time came around, Jess wouldn't stop glancing out the front windows. The guy was still there. Same wall, same pose, like he'd been nailed into place. She nudged me. Tell me you see him too. I don't want to feel crazy, I nodded. Of course I saw him. But I told her, forget it. Manager says the guy's harmless. Probably just homeless. That was a lie. Our manager hadn't said anything like that. Truth is, I never even brought it up. Why would I? The man wasn't doing anything. And besides, I didn't want to explain why I couldn't stop staring at him. Still, when we clocked out and headed to our cars, Jess clung a little closer to me than usual. I walked her across the lot, trying not to look toward the dumpster. But I felt his eyes on us. I swear I did. Funny thing is, I couldn't tell you what his face looked like. Even now it's just a blank. I remember shadows, the shape of his hood, the color of that jacket. But his features, nothing. It's like my memory skipped over the details, or maybe I just don't want to admit what I saw. The next day, Jess joked about it again. She said, if brown windbreaker guy shows up, you're walking me to my car. Deal? I told her sure, no problem. Made it sound casual. But inside, my stomach knotted, because I'd already seen him that morning, standing across the street, watching. I didn't tell her that. Why scare her when I could just keep it to myself? That's the thing about memory. It shifts. Sometimes I think he followed us inside that day. Sometimes I think I spoke to him, even rang him up at the register. But if I did, why don't I remember his voice? Why don't I remember his eyes? What I do remember, clear as glass, is Jess's face when she realized he was outside again that night. We were closing, lights dimmed, music already cut. She froze by the front doors, keys dangling in her hand. "There he is," she whispered, and I looked. And yeah, he was there, right under the flickering light, just close enough that the shadows bent across his face, still as stone. She wanted to tell the manager I could see it, but I said, "Don't bother. He's not breaking any laws." And that shut her up. She didn't like it, but she didn't argue. Why did I say that? Why didn't I want anyone else involved? Maybe because I knew the man wasn't watching her. Not really. He was watching me. Later, when people asked me what he looked like, I said I couldn't remember. That much is true. But what I didn't say, the part I kept to myself, was how familiar he felt. Like déjà vu, like I'd seen that windbreaker before years ago, on someone who shouldn't still be alive. I tried not to think about it, told myself it was all in my head. People stand around outside stores all the time. People wear jackets. Big deal. But deep down, I knew Jess was right to be afraid. Because the third night was different. That night, when we left, he wasn't by the wall. He wasn't by the dumpster. He wasn't across the street. He was closer, standing right beside Jess's car. And that's where I'll pick up next. You ever notice how silence can feel heavier than noise? That night, it pressed down on me so hard I thought my ears would bleed. Silence in a Dollar Tree isn't natural. There's always something. The faint buzz of the soda cooler, the hum of fluorescence, the clatter of carts rolling back into place. But when Jess disappeared, all that sound seemed to vanish. I've told people different versions of this story. I'll admit that. Sometimes I say I was the last one in the building, turning off lights, counting registers. Other times I say Jess was right behind me. Both can't be true, I know. Maybe that's the point. My head doesn't line up anymore. The truth feels like it's hiding somewhere in between. What I do remember is this. Jess should have clocked out. She always did. She was careful, responsible. That night, though, her punch never registered in the system. The screen just sat there, her name glowing, waiting. I went looking for her. The store felt wrong, like someone had pressed pause on reality. Shelves half stocked with off-brand cereal boxes loomed taller than they should have. The floor shone too clean, too wet, as if someone had just mopped even though I knew nobody had. "Jess?" I called out. My voice bounced between the aisles, came back to me sounding unfamiliar, too sharp, too loud. No answer. I checked the candy aisle first, because she liked to sneak Kit Kats when she thought no one was watching. Nothing. Then the cleaning supplies, rows of bleach and knockoff Windex staring back at me with their cheap, plastic grins. Empty. By the time I pushed through the stockroom door, my hands were slick with sweat. The air was thicker back there, musty, smelling like damp cardboard. That's when I heard it. Her phone ringing. At first, I thought it was coming from outside, muffled through the walls. But no, it was close. Too close. I followed the sound, my pulse thudding in my neck. Each ring dragged me deeper into the shadows between pallets and shrink wrap. And then I saw it. Her phone, lying face up on a stack of unopened boxes. The screen lit up with her own name, Jess calling. That's not possible, right? How does your phone call itself? I must have misread it, or maybe I'm remembering it wrong. Yeah, maybe it just said Mom or unknown caller. But at the time, I swear it said Jess calling. I picked it up. The line was already dead. That's when I realized something worse. Her car was still outside. I rushed back to the front of the store, breath shallow, shoes squeaking on the tile. The glass doors were dark mirrors, throwing my own face back at me. And there, just beyond them in the lot, Jess's beat-up Corolla sat under the flickering light. The driver's side door was cracked open. I don't know how long I stood there. Seconds, minutes. My memory chews it up, spits it back out in pieces. What I do remember is the sound of wheels again. Cartwheels squeaking across the pavement. Except this time, there was no one pushing them. The cops got involved quick after that, or maybe not quick enough. Depends who you ask. I called it in, voice shaking so hard, the dispatcher kept asking me to repeat myself. When the officers arrived, their lights painted the store red and blue, strobing across every aisle like some sick party. They searched the lot, the dumpsters, the strip of woods behind the building. Nothing. No Jess. Just her phone, her car, and the echo of her absence. They questioned me right there, under the buzzing street lamp. I remember the cold metal of the hood against my back as I leaned on Jess's car, trying not to throw up. "What time did you last see her?" one of them asked. I opened my mouth, but the words twisted. "She left with me." No, that wasn't right. She was closing the registers. Or maybe, I don't know, I don't remember. They exchanged a look. I hated that look, like they'd already decided something about me. One officer shined his flashlight across the lot, sweeping over cracks in the asphalt, over discarded wrappers, over shadows. For a second, I swear I saw him, the man in the brown windbreaker, standing just beyond the edge of the light. But when I blinked, there was only empty space. The cops kept pushing. Did she mention anyone bothering her? Did you notice anyone suspicious hanging around? Are you sure you walked her out? I lied, straight to their faces. I said no, I hadn't noticed anyone. I said Jess never mentioned anything. I said everything was normal. Why did I lie? Maybe I didn't want them to think I was crazy. Or maybe I didn't want them to look too closely at me. They let me go after a while, but not before one officer leaned in close and muttered, "You seem nervous." I wanted to scream. Of course I was nervous. My friend was gone. But the truth is, my nerves weren't just about Jess. They were about him, about the brown windbreaker, about how I couldn't shake the feeling that he wasn't after Jess at all. Later, when I was alone, I replayed the night in my head, over and over. Sometimes I see Jess walking out ahead of me, keys jingling, her laugh trailing behind. Sometimes I see her stopping in the doorway, staring into the dark lot. And sometimes, I hate to admit this, I see myself standing closer to her car than I should have been. Maybe I forgot to mention that to the cops. Maybe I left it out on purpose. But here's what I can't deny. Jess never clocked out. The system proves it. She never left that store, and yet she was gone. And when the investigators pulled the security footage the next day, that's when everything got worse. Because the man in the brown windbreaker didn't just show up on the tape. He looked straight into the camera. You'd think seeing the footage would clear everything up. You'd think it would tell the story straight, without my broken memory twisting it. But the thing about security cameras, they don't just record what happened. They record what you don't want to see. When the investigators pulled me into that little back room, the screen was already glowing. The hum of the monitor filled the silence louder than any voice. One of them hit play, and there it was. Grainy, washed out black and white, but clear enough. The man in the brown windbreaker. He walked across the lot, slow and deliberate, like he had all the time in the world. He wasn't hiding, wasn't sneaking. He wanted to be seen. "Is this the man you noticed?" one officer asked. I stared at the screen, throat dry. "No," I said, but the words slipped out too fast, too sharp. They knew it was a lie. The footage kept rolling. Jess walked out next, fumbling with her keys. She paused, glanced his way, then looked back toward the store, as if she expected me to be right behind her. That's when the man turned his head. He looked straight at the camera. Everyone else in that room swore they saw his face plain as day. They described him. Dark eyes, sharp jaw, faint scar near the mouth. They saw details, but me, all I saw was blur, a smudge where his features should be, like the tape itself was protecting me from remembering. I said as much, and the investigators exchanged another one of those looks. The kind that says he's hiding something. Take another look, one of them ordered. So I did, and here's where it gets strange. Every time I watched it, his movements shifted. Subtle but enough. Sometimes he stood closer to Jess's car, sometimes farther. Sometimes I swear I saw myself in the frame, hovering near the doorway when I shouldn't have been there at all. I told them that, but they didn't believe me. The footage doesn't change, they said, but I know what I saw. Then came the part I can't explain away. Jess reaches her car. She opens the door. The man steps forward. And then static, just for a second. When the picture clears, she's gone. Door wide open, purse still on the hood. But Jess vanished. The man in the brown windbreaker doesn't move. He just stands there, head tilted toward the camera again, almost like he's smiling. One investigator leaned forward. "You were there," he said flatly. "Why didn't you do anything?" "I wasn't," I shot back. "I told you I wasn't out there." But the tape showed otherwise. A figure, someone my height, my build, standing just at the edge of the frame, watching. I denied it. I denied it until my throat burned. But the more I denied, the less I believed myself. Here's the part that keeps me up at night. Sometimes, when I replay the memory, I don't see the man in the brown windbreaker at all. I see me, standing by Jess's car, standing too close. So who's lying? The tape? My memory? Or me? The investigators eventually shut the monitor off. The room fell into darkness except for the faint glow of standby. One of them scribbled notes while the other just stared at me, like he was waiting for me to confess something I couldn't even name. "You're sure you didn't know him?" he pressed. "No," I whispered, but the word felt wrong in my mouth. Because deep down I think I did sometimes. When I close my eyes, I see that windbreaker in places it doesn't belong. In my father's closet when I was a kid, on the coat rack of a friend long gone, folded up in the back seat of my own car. It's like the jacket's been following me my whole life, just waiting for me to recognize it. They eventually let me go. Not enough proof to hold me, not enough evidence to charge anyone. Jess was declared missing, and the case went cold faster than anyone wanted to admit. But I still see him. Or maybe I just see myself. People ask why I'm telling this now. Why confess to half memories and contradictions that only make me look guilty? The answer's simple. Because I need someone else to see what I can't. They said he looked right into the camera that night, but when I replay it in my head, it's me he's staring at. And I think, no, I know, he's still waiting for me to remember. Story number 2. You know, they say no one really disappears in these woods. They're either taken or they choose to stay. But what if I told you I was there the night she vanished, and I don't remember whether I helped her or hurt her? You're probably wondering what Daniel found in that back room. The truth is, I'm not sure. He swore it was nothing. But then why wouldn't he meet my eyes afterward? Why did he shut the door so fast? Like he was hiding something from me. Or maybe from himself. Sometimes I tell people it was empty. Other times I say he wouldn't stop staring into the dark like there was someone already waiting there. Both are true. Both are lies. I can't decide which anymore. He came back pale, water dripping from his hood, his hands trembling as if he'd touched something cold. I asked what was wrong. He shook his head, but the answer came anyway. Not from him, from the whispers. They slid out from the cracks in the walls, soft, layered, like more than one mouth speaking at once. And this time, they didn't say my name. They said, "They're here." I should have laughed. Should have told Daniel he was imagining things, that we both were. But before I could, there was a knock at the door. Now, you have to understand, this shelter was halfway up a mountain. In the middle of a storm, no one in their right mind would climb through. But the knock was real. I swear it was. Daniel froze, eyes wide, and I couldn't tell if he was relieved or terrified. When I opened the door, no, wait, I don't remember opening it. The details slip, blur, rearrange themselves. One moment the door was shut tight, The next two figures stood dripping in the threshold. A man and a woman, hikers like us, or at least they looked the part. Muddy boots, heavy packs, faces drawn tight from the storm. They didn't introduce themselves right away. The woman just brushed past me, muttering thanks, while the man gave a nod, though his eyes never left mine. It was as if he recognized me, as if he expected me. Daniel asked their names later. I can't remember what they said. The syllables twist in my memory, too soft to pin down. Sometimes I think they never spoke at all. The whispers grew louder with them inside. That's what I'll say. Though Daniel insisted he heard nothing. He laughed with them, shared his water, tried to act like we were all just unlucky hikers caught in the same storm. But I saw the way his eyes darted toward me, questioning. Maybe he wondered why I sat silent, clutching my pack like it was the only thing tethering me to the room. At some point, the woman asked if anyone had an axe. For firewood, she said, though her smile was wrong, too sharp. I told her no, but my voice cracked, and Daniel shot me a look. "What do you mean, no?" he said. "You packed one, remember?" I wanted to tell him he was mistaken. I wanted to tell him not to say that word out loud, but the whispers surged then, wrapping around the word axe until it sounded like they were the ones who had spoken it. I don't know how much time passed. Hours? Minutes? The storm raged outside, but inside felt worse, the air heavy with words unsaid. The man sat sharpening something with a stone. Maybe it was just a knife. Maybe it was more. Daniel whispered to me that he didn't trust them, and I almost laughed because how could he trust me? The woman kept staring at the back room door. She asked what was in there, and Daniel opened his mouth to answer, but I cut him off. I said it was nothing, that we had already checked. Too fast, too defensive. She tilted her head like she knew I was lying. Maybe she did. Later, though I can't swear when, the voices started changing. They didn't just echo around the walls. They borrowed mouths. I heard Daniel say something cruel, but when I confronted him, his face crumpled. "I never said that," he swore. The woman accused me of whispering her name in the dark, but my lips hadn't moved. Or had they? The man gripped my shoulder once, too hard, his eyes boring into mine. "You brought us here," he muttered. Only later did I realize he'd spoken the same words as the voices. Sleep was impossible. Daniel dozed once, his head slumping, but I stayed awake watching the others. Every time I blinked, their shapes shifted, sometimes too tall, sometimes hunched, sometimes not even human at all. And through it all, the whispers pulsed, growing into chants, telling me what I already feared, that not everyone would leave the shelter alive. I think I argued with Daniel. I think I told him the others weren't real. But he snapped at me, said I was losing it, said he'd seen their footprints in the mud outside. Proof, he called it. Proof of what, though? Proof they were people, or proof the mountain itself had spat them out to test us. At some point, I swear I'm not making this up, the whispers stopped. Dead silence. The kind that makes your ears ring. And in that silence, the woman's voice rose, low and steady. "One of us isn't supposed to be here." She didn't say who. She didn't need to. Every gaze turned on me. I could explain what happened next, but I don't think you'd believe me. Some nights I don't even believe myself. There was shouting, maybe pushing, maybe worse. Daniel tried to calm them, but his words twisted in the air, feeding the chaos. My flashlight flickered, shadows danced where no one stood, and then, I don't remember how, I ended up alone near the door, my hand pressed against the rotten wood as though weighing escape. Behind me, voices clashed, human, inhuman, whispers, screams. I wanted to leave, but I couldn't. Not because the storm was too strong, not because I was afraid of being lost, but because I knew, deep down, the storm wasn't the real danger. The real danger was inside. That's how I'll leave it for now. You'll think I'm being dramatic, but it's the only way to make you understand what comes next. The night wasn't about survival anymore. It was about division. The whispers had seen to that. They had us exactly where they wanted us. And the worst part, The storm outside was already beginning to fade, which meant we no longer had an excuse to stay, but none of us were leaving, not together. They tell me I walked out of that shelter alone. That's what the rangers swore when they found me half dead at the base of the trail. But if that's true, then who were the voices still screaming inside my head when I opened my eyes in the hospital? If no one else survived, then why do I remember Daniel's hand clutching mine, warm and shaking until it wasn't? The storm had passed by then. That's the part that always feels wrong when I replay it. The air outside was calm, the rain thinning to mist. Yet inside the shelter, the pressure built heavier, like we were sinking deeper underwater. No storm could cause that. No weather could twist sound into words that cut sharper than any blade. I don't remember sleeping. I only remember waking, suddenly, violently to silence. Not just quiet. Absence. The kind of silence that makes you realize everything before had been noise. I sat up, my pack toppled, my flashlight dead. The others. Here's the part where stories usually stay consistent, but mine doesn't. Sometimes I say Daniel was sitting beside me. Sometimes I say he was gone. Once, I swore I saw him standing in the back room doorway, his face blank, his lips moving though no sound came out. Every version could be true. Every version could be a lie. The man and the woman. Their shapes waver in my memory like smoke. I recall the man sharpening his knife again, only now the scraping was inside my skull. The woman whispered directly into my ear, though she sat across the room. And when I spun around to confront her, I saw Daniel instead. I know. You think I'm mixing things up. That shock rewired the night. But you weren't there. You didn't feel the way the shelter bent around us, like its walls were breathing, inhaling our fear. At some point, Daniel snapped, or maybe it was me. All I know is that voices rose, overlapping, spilling accusations. Someone shouted my name, accusing me of leading them here on purpose. Someone else screamed that the whispers wanted blood, that one of us had to pay. And then, I swear I didn't touch it, an axe lay on the floor between us. I told you earlier I never packed one, but there it was, wet, gleaming, heavy as guilt. Daniel asked me if it was mine. I told him no, but he didn't believe me. His voice cracked, the way it did when he lied, or maybe when I lied. We argued, words tripping over whispers, until I couldn't tell which were mine and which belonged to the shelter. The others just watched, eyes hollow, waiting for something to happen. It did. The lights, our headlamps, our phones, everything snapped off at once. Darkness fell so thick it felt physical. And in that darkness I heard movement. Not footsteps exactly. More like bodies dragging against the walls, circling. Daniel's voice called my name, desperate, begging. But another Daniel answered from the opposite side of the room, colder, crueler. And then 2 voices became 3, then 4, all of them chanting, echoing, overlapping until I pressed my hands against my ears and screamed. When the lights flickered back, the axe was gone. I can't tell you what happened in the moments that followed. My mind blurs them into violence. I remember shoving. I remember someone hitting the floor hard. I remember warm spray across my cheek that I told myself was rain leaking through the roof. But here's the thing. The storm had ended. When the door finally creaked open, windless and still, I staggered toward it, my chest heaving, throat raw. Behind me, the whispers called after me, layered with the voices of everyone I had known. Daniel, the man, the woman, even my own. They begged me to stay. They promised safety if I just closed the door again. I wish I could tell you I didn't look back, but I did. And what I saw, I shouldn't say. Maybe it was bodies. Maybe it was shadows. Maybe it was just guilt shaping the dark into something alive. All I know is the whispers followed me down the trail. They followed me through the trees, into the mist, into my bones. Even when the rangers found me, half frozen, lips cracked, they wouldn't stop. They haven't stopped since. Sometimes, late at night, I hear Daniel's voice clearer than the rest. He asks me why I left him. He asks me if I remember what really happened in that shelter. And the truth is, I don't. Or maybe I do, and I just can't face it. Because when I close my eyes, when the room is still, when the air feels too heavy, I feel the weight of that axe in my hands. But I never touched it. I never touched it, right? That's the part I need you to believe. Or maybe the part I need to believe myself. Because if I did touch it, if I swung it, then the whispers aren't haunting me. They're just my conscience, dressed in voices I can't silence. And yet, even now, as I speak to you, I hear something else. A low creak, wood bending, like a door easing open behind me. That same door, the one that should have stayed closed. Maybe I never left the shelter at all. Maybe I'm still there, trapped, telling this story over and over, hoping someone out there hears me and understands. Or maybe you're already inside with me. Why did I lie? Maybe I didn't want them to think I was crazy, or maybe I didn't want them to look too closely at me. They let me go after a while, but not before one officer leaned in close and muttered, "You seem nervous." I wanted to scream. Of course I was nervous, my friend was gone. But the truth is, my nerves weren't just about Jess. They were about him, about the brown windbreaker, about how I couldn't shake the feeling that he wasn't after Jess at all. Later, when I was alone, I replayed the night in my head, over and over. Sometimes I see Jess walking out ahead of me, keys jingling, her laugh trailing behind. Sometimes I see her stopping in the doorway, staring into the dark lot. And sometimes, I hate to admit this, I see myself standing closer to her car than I should have been. Maybe I forgot to mention that to the cops. Maybe I left it out on purpose. But here's what I can't deny. Jess never clocked out. The system proves it. She never left that store. And yet, she was gone. And when the investigators pulled the security footage the next day, that's when everything got worse. Because the man in the brown windbreaker didn't just show up on the tape. He looked straight into the camera. You'd think seeing the footage would clear everything up. You'd think it would tell the story straight, without my broken memory twisting it. But the thing about security cameras, they don't just record what happened. They record what you don't want to see. When the investigators pulled me into that little back room, the screen was already glowing. The hum of the monitor filled the silence louder than any voice. One of them hit play, and there it was, grainy, washed out black and white, but clear enough. The man in the brown windbreaker, he walked across the lot, slow and deliberate, like he had all the time in the world. He wasn't hiding, wasn't sneaking. He wanted to be seen. "Is this the man you noticed?" one officer asked. I stared at the screen, throat dry. "No," I said. But the words slipped out too fast, too sharp. They knew it was a lie. The footage kept rolling. Jess walked out next, fumbling with her keys. She paused, glanced his way, then looked back toward the store, as if she expected me to be right behind her. That's when the man turned his head. He looked straight at the camera. Everyone else in that room swore they saw his face plain as day. They described him. Dark eyes, sharp jaw, faint scar near the mouth. They saw details, but me, all I saw was blur, a smudge where his features should be, like the tape itself was protecting me from remembering. I said as much, and the investigators exchanged another one of those looks, the kind that says he's hiding something. "Take another look," one of them ordered. So I did, and here's where it gets strange. Every time I watched it, his movements shifted, subtle but enough. Sometimes he stood closer to Jess's car, sometimes farther. Sometimes I swear I saw myself in the frame, hovering near the doorway when I shouldn't have been there at all. I told them that, but they didn't believe me. "The footage doesn't change," they said, "but I know what I saw." Then came the part I can't explain away. Jess reaches her car. She opens the door. The man steps forward. And then static, just for a second. When the picture clears, She's gone, door wide open, purse still on the hood, but Jess vanished. The man in the brown windbreaker doesn't move. He just stands there, head tilted toward the camera again. Almost like he's smiling, one investigator leaned forward. "You were there," he said flatly. "Why didn't you do anything?" "I wasn't," I shot back. "I told you I wasn't out there." But the tape showed otherwise. A figure, someone my height, my build, standing just at the edge of the frame, watching. I denied it. I denied it until my throat burned. But the more I denied, the less I believed myself. Here's the part that keeps me up at night. Sometimes, when I replay the memory, I don't see the man in the brown windbreaker at all. I see me, standing by Jess's car, standing too close. So who's lying? The tape, my memory, or me? The investigators eventually shut the monitor off. The room fell into darkness, except for the faint glow of standby. One of them scribbled notes while the other just stared at me, like he was waiting for me to confess something I couldn't even name. "You're sure you didn't know him?" he pressed. "No," I whispered. But the word felt wrong in my mouth, because deep down I think I did. Sometimes, when I close my eyes, I see that windbreaker in places it doesn't belong. In my father's closet when I was a kid, on the coat rack of a friend long gone, folded up in the back seat of my own car. It's like the jacket's been following me my whole life, just waiting for me to recognize it. They eventually let me go. Not enough proof to hold me. Not enough evidence to charge anyone. Jess was declared missing, and the case went cold faster than anyone wanted to admit. But I still see him. Or maybe I just see myself. People ask why I'm telling this now. Why confess to half memories and contradictions that only make me look guilty? The answer's simple. Because I need someone else to see what I can't. They said he looked right into the camera that night. But when I replay it in my head, it's me he's staring at. And I think, no, I know, he's still waiting for me to remember. Story number 2. The woman in the aisle a late-night trip to a Dollar General leads to a disturbing and persistent haunting by a strange woman first encountered in the store. I know this is going to sound insane, but I swear to you, I never went inside that store. Not once. And yet, somehow, I can still see her face as clearly as if she was standing in front of me right now. That's the part I can't explain, the part that keeps me awake at night. It was one of those nights where the world feels drained of color, where everything looks like it's been washed under a dirty streetlight. I pulled into the Dollar General parking lot, the buzz of the fluorescent sign rattling in my ears before I even cut the engine. The lot was empty except for my car, and a delivery truck backed up against the side. I remember gripping the steering wheel and thinking, I shouldn't be here. But then again, I wasn't supposed to be anywhere else either. You see, I keep telling myself I only sat there in the car, watching. That's all I did. I didn't step out, didn't push open those glass doors, didn't feel that blast of artificial air conditioning hit me in the face. I never went inside. I repeat that like a mantra, over and over. Because the alternative, well, the alternative is much worse. Still, I know what I saw. The first thing was the light. You've been in those stores before, right? That endless glow, too bright to be comfortable, too dim to feel safe. It flickers at the edges of your vision like something's wrong with your eyes. From my car, I could see down the main aisle, stacked high with dollar brand cleaning supplies, paper towels, and cheap seasonal junk. And that's when I noticed her. She was standing in the middle of the aisle, perfectly still, like she'd been waiting there for me. At first, I thought she was just another late-night shopper. A woman in a long black coat, dark hair falling past her shoulders. Nothing unusual, but the longer I stared, the more wrong she looked. Her face was too pale under those buzzing lights, as if the store itself had drained her of color. And she was holding a basket, just a simple wire basket, the kind the store barely keeps around anymore. Only, it wasn't filled with anything that belonged there. I know this doesn't make sense, I told you already, I never went inside, but somehow I could see what she was carrying. A bleach bottle, yes, that fit. But next to it, a pair of tiny children's shoes. One of them smeared dark at the toe. And beneath that, I swear I saw something raw, like meat, or maybe something worse. Things you wouldn't find on any shelf in that store. I blinked, and suddenly the basket looked empty again. I should have driven away. That would have been the normal thing to do. But my hands stayed frozen on the steering wheel, and my eyes locked on hers, because she was staring straight back at me. Not in the vague, distracted way strangers look past each other in stores. No. Her head tilted slightly, and her eyes locked onto mine through the plate glass window. She knew I was watching. She wanted me to. That's when I realized something else. If I'd never gone inside, how could she know I was there? I don't know how long I sat there. Maybe seconds, maybe minutes. My memory feels stretched thin, like it's been folded over too many times. One moment I was in my car. The next, I was standing outside it, the door wide open, the night air cold against my skin. I don't remember opening it. I don't remember stepping out. But I was closer now, close enough to hear the buzzing of the lights, close enough to see the faint fog of my breath against the glass. Inside, the woman hadn't moved. Her basket hung at her side, heavy with things I couldn't quite make out anymore. And then she smiled. Just a small, deliberate curl of her lips that told me she knew something I didn't. Something about me. That was enough. I stumbled back into my car, slammed the door, and pulled out of that lot faster than I should have. The tires squealed, and for a second, I thought I saw her face reflected in my rearview mirror, even though I was already halfway down the street. I should have gone home and forgotten about it, pretended it was nothing but a trick of the lights in my exhausted mind. But forgetting is impossible when you're being followed. When I finally reached my apartment, everything felt off. The hallway seemed darker than usual, the air heavier. I told myself it was just nerves, but my mind was still stuck on the image of that pale face. I locked the door, double-checked it, and even wedged a chair under the knob. Then I sat on the couch in silence, listening. That's when I heard it. The faintest sound of something metallic brushing against the floorboards, like the scrape of a basket being dragged across linoleum. I froze, heart pounding, every nerve in my body screaming to run, but where? My apartment is small, just a single hallway leading to the bedroom. And at the end of that hallway, she was there, the same woman, the same black coat, standing perfectly still, as if the world had paused around her. And yes, she had the basket. This time, I could see what was inside with terrifying clarity. My own keys, my phone, a photograph of me I swear I've never taken. I opened my mouth to scream, but nothing came out. She didn't move toward me. She didn't say a word. She just stood there, holding that impossible basket, watching me with those pale, unblinking eyes, and then, as quickly as she'd appeared, the hallway was empty again. I don't know how to make you believe me. I've gone over this night 1,000 times in my head, and every version ends the same way, with me swearing that I never went inside that store. But then the memory slips and suddenly I'm not sure anymore. Did I step through those doors? Did I see her standing there, waiting, long before she followed me home? All I know is this. Once you've seen her, you can't unsee her. She doesn't stay in the aisles where she belongs. She finds you, and once she does, she doesn't let go. I didn't sleep that night. How could I? Every time I close my eyes, I imagined her standing at the end of the hallway again, that basket sagging in her hand, my own belongings piled inside like trophies. But when I forced myself to get up, to flip on the light and check, the hallway was empty, always empty. That's what makes me wonder if maybe I dreamed it, if maybe the woman wasn't real at all, just some half-formed shadow my guilty mind cooked up. And yet, if it was just a dream, then why do I still hear the sound of that basket scraping across my floor? The first time it happened was just before dawn. I'd finally slumped into the couch, exhausted. the TV playing static because I couldn't bring myself to change the channel. That's when I heard it again. Metal against wood, slow and deliberate. Scrape, pause, scrape. Like she was dragging the basket 1 inch at a time closer to where I was lying. I bolted upright, but the hallway was still empty. My heart hammered so hard it hurt, and I told myself it had to be the neighbors. Old pipes, anything but her. But the sound didn't come from the walls. It came from inside my apartment. I didn't go to work that day. Couldn't. I spent the morning pacing the apartment, checking every lock, every closet, every shadow. And every time I turned my head, I thought I caught a glimpse of her coat vanishing just out of sight. Once in the reflection of the microwave, once in the dark edge of the bathroom mirror. Always watching, always close. By noon I cracked. I picked up my phone and called Jake. He's been my friend since college, the kind of guy who never takes anything seriously. If I was losing my mind, he'd at least tell me straight. When he answered, I tried to sound casual. Hey Jake, weird question. You ever get the feeling someone's like following you? There was a pause, then his laugh crackled through the line. Dude, what did you do now? Sleep with someone's girlfriend? I didn't laugh. Couldn't. My voice shook when I said, no, I mean it. I think someone came into my apartment last night. Jake went quiet. When he spoke again, his tone had shifted, serious now. Wait, are you saying someone broke in? Did you call the cops? I swallowed. My mouth had gone dry. No, it's not. It's not like that. I didn't see her come in. She was just there, holding this basket. Another pause. Then he sighed. You're not making sense, man. You sure you didn't just dream it? That word, dream, made my skin crawl, because it was the same excuse I'd been telling myself all morning. But no matter how many times I tried to believe it, I knew it wasn't true. I wanted to tell him everything. The Dollar General, the pale face under the fluorescent lights, the impossible items in her basket. But the words stuck in my throat, because if I admitted all of it, if I said it out loud, it would become real. And maybe Jake would start asking questions I couldn't answer, like what I was doing in that parking lot in the first place. So instead, I lied. Yeah, you're probably right. Just a dream. But it wasn't. That night, I tried again to sleep, though every nerve in my body screamed against it. I left the TV on this time, the volume low, hoping the noise would mask the silence. And for a few hours, I managed to drift. Then the sound returned. It started soft, almost delicate, like fingertips brushing over tile. Then louder, metal on wood, the scrape of the basket being dragged. I sat up, holding my breath, my eyes locked on the dark hallway. And this time, she didn't make me wait. She was standing there again, exactly where I'd seen her before. Same black coat, same pale face. Only now I could see her eyes more clearly. They weren't just unblinking. They were empty, hollow, as if she'd scooped out every trace of humanity and left nothing but blank, hungry sockets staring straight into me. The basket tilted in her hand and something clattered inside, a heavy thud followed by the wet slap of something soft. My stomach turned as I realized the items had changed again. No shoes this time, no bleach bottle. Now the basket held a handful of loose photographs, every one of them showing me, sleeping in my own bed from angles I couldn't have taken. And beneath them, something darker, something that dripped onto the floor. I don't know how long I stared, frozen, before the lights flickered and she vanished. The next morning, when I stumbled into the hallway, my feet stuck to the wood. A smear of something dark trailed across the floorboards, ending right where she'd been standing. I dropped to my knees and touched it, praying it was just spilled coffee, or maybe old paint, but the smell told me otherwise. It was blood. I scrubbed the floor until my hands blistered, until my vision blurred from tears. But no matter how hard I cleaned, the stain wouldn't lift. It was like the wood itself had absorbed it, refusing to let go. I told myself I'd imagined it, that the blood wasn't real, that maybe I'd cut myself without noticing. anything but the truth. That night, Jake called me back. "You sound like hell," he said. "You sure you're okay?" I almost told him then. Everything. I almost begged him to come over, to see for himself that I wasn't crazy, but something stopped me. Because if he came, and she appeared again, what if she noticed him instead? What if she added his things to the basket, the way she'd added mine? So I lied again. "Yeah, I'm fine, just not sleeping well." I could hear the doubt in his silence, but he didn't press. And when the call ended, I sat alone in my dark apartment, waiting for the sound of the basket. It came sooner this time. Scrape. Pause. Scrape. But it wasn't just the sound. It was the rhythm, a pattern, deliberate, like footsteps, like a heartbeat. And every scrape brought her closer. I grabbed my phone, shaking, ready to dial Jake back. But when I lifted it, the screen was already lit. The photograph stared back at me. Not one I'd taken, not one I'd seen before. It was me, sitting on the couch, phone in hand, looking terrified. Taken seconds ago. I dropped the phone. My breath caught in my throat, because if the picture was that recent, it meant she wasn't down the hallway anymore. She was already in the room. I don't remember dropping the phone. I don't remember the sound it made when it hit the floor. All I remember is the cold weight of her eyes on me, like someone had reached into my chest and squeezed the air out of my lungs. She didn't move at first, just stood there, the basket dangling from her hand, heavy with things that didn't belong to her. Or maybe they did. That's the part I can't figure out anymore, because each time I looked, the contents changed. Sometimes my keys, sometimes those photographs. Once I swear it was something worse. Something shaped like a hand, limp and grey, fingers curled. I blinked, and the basket was empty again. "Stop," I whispered. I don't even know who I was talking to, her or myself. My voice cracked in the silence, and that tiny sound was enough to make her tilt her head, as though she'd just noticed I was capable of speech. Then she smiled. I've tried to describe that smile 1,000 different ways, but none of them feel right. It wasn't kind, it wasn't cruel, it was worse than both. It was knowing, like she could see through the... It was worse than both. It was knowing, like she could see through the walls of my skull and peel apart every memory I've tried to bury. I don't remember choosing to run, but my legs carried me to the door anyway. I yanked at the lock, shoved the chair aside, nearly ripped the handle from the frame. But when I opened it, the hallway outside was gone. In its place was the Dollar General. Those buzzing fluorescent lights, those endless aisles, the smell of cheap detergent and plastic still hanging in the air. And her. Always her. I stumbled backward, slamming the door shut, but it didn't matter. The store was inside now, stitched into my walls, filling every corner of my home. Wherever I went, whatever door I opened, there it was again. Rows of shelves, fluorescent hum, and her pale figure waiting just ahead. That's when it hit me. Maybe I never left that night. Maybe I never drove away. Maybe I've been here the whole time, trapped under that sickly light, trying to convince myself I escaped. That's why I keep saying I never went inside, because admitting I did means I never got out. I tried to fight it, tried to tell myself it was all in my head. I pressed my palms against my eyes until I saw stars, begged the darkness to swallow her whole. But when I opened them again, she was closer. I could hear the basket now, every scrape, every shift of metal against linoleum, louder, heavier, echoing inside my skull. "Please," I whispered, backing away until my spine hit the wall. "Please, I didn't mean..." I stopped myself. The words caught in my throat, thick and sour. Because what exactly was I about to admit? That I did go inside? That I did walk down that aisle and see her standing there? That maybe, just maybe, the reason she won't leave me alone is because of something I did that night. I wish I could tell you the truth, but the truth shifts every time I reach for it. Sometimes I see myself entering the store, brushing past her as if she weren't there. Sometimes I see myself grabbing her wrist, stopping her. Sometimes I see blood. And every time the memory plays, she smiles that same smile. The walls around me flicker, humming like the overhead lights. My apartment is gone. The store is all that's left now. Every aisle stretching on forever. Every shadow hiding her shape. And I know deep down there's no checkout, no exit. Once you're inside, you don't leave. I tried calling Jake again, one last time. I thought if someone else heard my voice, maybe I could anchor myself. Maybe I could prove I was still here, still real. The phone rang once, twice, then cut to static. Not a voice, not a dial tone, just that sharp, buzzing hum, the same sound the lights make above me. And over the static, faint but clear, came the scrape of the basket. I dropped the phone, fell to my knees. The buzzing grew louder, drilling into my skull, until I couldn't tell if it was the lights or my own thoughts tearing apart at the seams. I clutched my head and screamed, but the sound barely reached my own ears. When I looked up, she was right in front of me. Her face filled my vision, pale, hollow-eyed, endless. The basket pressed against my chest, heavy, impossible. I didn't want to look inside, but I couldn't stop myself. My hands trembled as I peered down at the contents. It was full now, full to the brim, with everything I've ever hidden, every lie I've told, every secret I've buried, faces I don't want to remember, moments I swore I'd erased, all piled together, dripping, rotten, undeniable. And at the very top, a single receipt, one line printed in fading black ink. Check out one soul. I can't leave. I don't think I was ever supposed to, but maybe you can. If you're listening, if you're watching this right now, don't go near that store. Don't step inside. Don't even look too long at the aisles, because once she notices you, she'll add you to the basket too. Story number 4, the white sedan. Person's sense of safety is shattered when they are relentlessly followed by a mysterious man in a white sedan after a simple trip to the Dollar Tree. You ever get that? Feeling that someone's been watching you all along, even before you notice them. I saw it first in the Dollar Tree parking lot. That white sedan parked crookedly under the flickering neon sign, headlights off, like it had been waiting for me. And the thing is, I don't even remember if I noticed it when I first walked out, or if it appeared after I was already halfway to my car. Memory doesn't work straight when your paranoia starts building. I shook it off at first. Sure, coincidences happen. People park weirdly all the time, but something about that car, it didn't belong, and maybe that's why I couldn't stop glancing at it. The neon lights above the store flickered in uneven bursts, casting long, jagged shadows across the lot. I could see my breath fogging in the cold night air, the condensation forming tiny beads on the windshield of the white sedan that shouldn't have been there. The glass looked like it was breathing, almost alive, like the car itself was waiting to inhale me whole. I climbed into my car, doors locking automatically with a satisfying click that didn't calm me one bit. My hands shook slightly as I slid the key in. The engine roared to life, echoing too loudly in the near-empty parking lot. And that's when I noticed something. A figure. A man sitting in the driver's seat of the sedan. Or at least I thought I did. Sometimes I remember it that way. Other times I swear the car was empty, dark and still. And I can't reconcile which memory is real. But in that moment, I felt it. The unmistakable weight of being watched. I didn't say anything at the time. No one else noticed. Jess, my co-worker, was still gathering her purse and adjusting her jacket near the store entrance. She glanced toward the sedan too, and her face twitched with something I didn't quite place. Fear, maybe, or irritation. You see him too, right? She asked, voice barely above a whisper. I forced a laugh, one I didn't feel. Probably just some guy waiting for his friend, I said. I tried to sound casual, even confident, but I couldn't stop staring at the car. Couldn't stop the creeping thought in the back of my mind that it had been there the entire time I was inside, maybe even longer. She shook her head, nervously twisting the strap of her purse. It's weird. I mean, he's just sitting there. Relax, I said, brushing it off. Maybe he's lost or... I stopped mid-sentence, realizing how hollow it sounded. My eyes didn't leave the sedan. Every movement in that parking lot felt amplified. The clatter of a shopping cart rolling across the asphalt sounded like gunfire. The flicker of the neon sign seemed deliberate, like a strobe for something I wasn't meant to see. And the white sedan sat there unmoving, watching me. Or so it seemed. I got into my car finally, sliding the door shut slowly, too aware of every sound outside. The headlights of the sedan were off, yet the interior seemed to glow faintly, like the car itself was alive in the dark. The windows fogged just enough to hide whatever or whoever was inside, but not enough to keep me from imagining eyes staring back at me. Jess sighed, shaking her head as she got into her car. I swear this place attracts weird people, she muttered. Yeah, probably nothing, I replied, more to myself than her, but I could feel my pulse spiking. The white sedan felt impossible to ignore now, a constant presence at the edge of my vision. As I started the engine, I glanced once more at the car. For a moment, I thought I saw it move slightly, adjusting in its space like it was anticipating me leaving. But the lot was empty otherwise. No other cars, no people, just the dull hum of fluorescent light bouncing off the asphalt. I could tell Jess noticed my tension. You okay? She asked. Yeah, I said quickly. Too quickly, gripping the steering wheel. Just thinking about closing out the registers. You know how it is. And that was a lie. I hadn't thought about work once since leaving the store. All I could think about was that car. As I pulled out of the parking space, the white sedan remained where it was. Or maybe it wasn't there at all. The shadows in my memory twist it differently each time I recall the night. But in that moment, I felt an undeniable dread. The kind that sits in your stomach and spreads like ice through your chest. We drove out of the lot, and I kept glancing in the rearview mirror. The streetlights cast long shadows across the hood of my car. I don't remember if the sedan followed at first, or if I imagined it. Some nights I think I saw it in the mirror, headlights off, following every turn. Other nights, I convinced myself it stayed in the parking lot the whole time. Jess chatted nervously beside me, laughing too loudly at nothing, trying to cut through the tension I could barely hide. Maybe it's nothing, she said, glancing at me, but I knew she wasn't convinced, and I couldn't tell her what I knew, or thought I knew. The thing about that night is that I started noticing the little details that didn't make sense. The way the car windows seemed to breathe, fog forming in unnatural shapes, the shadows stretching oddly, not matching the light, the sudden stops and starts of headlights flicking across the street like a warning. And the more I looked, the more I obsessed. By the time we pulled onto the main road, I was certain of one thing. The white sedan wasn't just a car. It was a presence, watching, waiting, maybe for me, maybe for Jess, maybe for both. And here's the twist, the part I can't fully admit. I think I wanted to see it, even as I told myself not to. I think I hoped it wouldn't be there. I think I wanted it to be. Jess didn't know that. She never would. I kept it to myself. And when we parted ways that night, she didn't notice the way I lingered in the rearview mirror, straining to see, trying to convince myself the sedan wasn't following us. But it was. And that's where it ends for now. The moment before the real chase begins. The moment before every turn, every street, every rearview glance becomes a question of whether reality is slipping. Because when you leave a Dollar Tree at 10 p.m., nothing should be watching you. But that night, something was. You ever get that feeling that no matter how fast you drive, someone else is moving faster? That night I felt it like a weight pressing down on my chest. The white sedan wasn't just parked anymore. It was behind me, just a few car lengths away, headlights off, engine silent, following every turn like it had been tracking me my entire life. And the weirdest part? I don't remember exactly when I noticed it. Sometimes I tell myself I saw it pulling out right as I left the Dollar Tree lot. Other times, I swear it appeared midway down the street, like it had materialized from the shadows. My memory is a broken film reel. Some frames I can see clearly, others are smudged, distorted, and I can't tell what's real anymore. The streetlights cast long, thin shadows across the pavement. Every signpost and mailbox seemed to stretch unnaturally toward my windshield. I kept glancing in the rearview mirror, and each time, the sedan appeared closer than it should have been, sometimes even seeming to lean forward, like it was pressing toward me through the night. I tried to convince myself. Lots of white sedans exist. It's probably someone else. But logic didn't help. Even as I thought it, I couldn't shake the certainty that it was him. Or was it me? That thought lingered, twisting in my chest. Jess's voice came from the passenger seat, light but strained. Maybe it's nothing. Maybe it's just coincidence. I nodded, but my head was spinning. Yeah, probably. Another lie. She didn't know me at that moment. She couldn't know how I was already convinced the car was following me. Every turn I took, the sedan followed. Every stoplight, it waited. And the strangest thing was the way it moved. Almost perfectly, unnaturally in sync with me, like it anticipated my choices. My hands gripped the steering wheel too tightly, knuckles white. I could feel my pulse in my throat. At one point I took an exit, trying to shake it. Maybe a wrong turn would throw it off. But when I glanced back from the curve, the sedan was still there. Headlights blacked out, windows tinted, silent, waiting, watching. And in that instant, I wondered if I'd ever left the store at all. I started talking to Jess in bursts, trying to distract myself. Do you remember the guy in the Dollar Tree parking lot? I asked. She laughed nervously. Yeah, the white sedan guy, right? Yeah, I said, voice shaking. Do you think maybe he followed us? Her laugh faltered. Probably not. It's late. People park weird. You're just... She trailed off, unsure, looking at me. And in that hesitation, I realized how alone I really was. The night felt longer than it should have. The roads didn't end. Every street seemed to stretch endlessly, like the world itself had decided to trap me in some distorted loop. The sedan never got closer, but it never fell behind either. It simply existed there in the distance, a persistent, impossible shadow. At one point, I thought I saw movement inside the car. A face. Maybe. Sometimes I think I saw eyes, dark and unblinking. Other times I swear the driver was empty, a phantom presence instead of a person. Memory shifts like this. Sometimes I think I made it up. Sometimes I think the car is smarter than I am. I called my sister on speakerphone, hoping to hear a familiar voice, something to ground me. Hey, yeah, I'm fine, I said quickly, though my voice trembled. Just driving home. Are you sure? She asked. You sound weird. Yeah, weird night. Nothing serious, I lied. I didn't tell her about the sedan. Couldn't. And if I had, I'm not sure I would have believed myself either. The streets grew darker, the houses more spread apart. Each intersection felt like a test. Every curve I took seemed calculated to keep the sedan at bay. yet it always stayed there, silent, perfect, waiting. At one point, I braked hard, heart hammering in my chest, and in that moment, I noticed it, or thought I did. The car's passenger side window rolled down a fraction, a subtle whisper of motion that shouldn't have been possible. But when I blinked, it was gone. I started rationalizing again. It's nothing, just my imagination. But I couldn't convince myself. Not anymore. Every time I glanced in the rear view, I expected it to vanish. Sometimes it did, sometimes it didn't. And every time it appeared, I felt that same cold weight of inevitability pressing into me. This car wasn't just behind me. It was waiting for me to slip, waiting for me to make a mistake. I tried taking side streets, doubling back, even circling the same block. Nothing mattered. The sedan mirrored every move, obeying some unspoken rule that I couldn't understand. At one point, I remembered Jess saying something else in the parking lot. "Some guy's been watching the store for days," she whispered. And I laughed it off then, nervous, thinking she was paranoid. But now, I wasn't so sure. By the time I approached the main road leading home, I realized I hadn't blinked in what felt like hours. My vision blurred at the edges, and yet every detail of that sedan stayed burned into my mind. The white paint, the tinted windows, the way it seemed to pulse in the darkness like it had a heartbeat. And then the unthinkable happened. I swear it was following me home, but when I turned the corner onto my street, it was gone. Not just hidden in shadows. Gone. As if it had never been there at all. I pulled into my driveway, shaking, and sat in silence, gripping the wheel. Jess got out, glancing back at me with concern. "Are you okay?" she asked. Yeah, fine," I muttered, though my voice cracked. "Just tired." But I wasn't fine. I knew what I felt wasn't over. And deep down, I knew that sooner or later, the white sedan would reappear. Waiting. Watching. Always. Because the roads don't end. They never do. You ever get that feeling someone or something has been inside your car all along, waiting for the perfect moment to show itself? That's how it felt that night. After the white sedan disappeared from my rearview mirror, I thought I was safe. I thought the nightmare had passed. But the moment I turned into my driveway, I heard it. The soft, deliberate click of a seatbelt. I froze, heart hammering so loudly I thought it would shatter my ribs. The dome light flickered on for just a second, casting a thin glow across the passenger seat. And there it was, empty, or maybe not. I leaned closer, squinting through the dim yellow glow. My own reflection stared back at me from the windshield, but then I thought I saw movement in the passenger seat again. Tiny, subtle, like the fabric shifted on its own. My hands shook, gripping the steering wheel. I'm imagining this, I whispered to no one, though I knew I wasn't alone. Sometimes I remember it differently. Some nights I swear I saw the outline of a man, the white sedan's driver somehow inside my car, smiling faintly in the dim light. Other nights I insist the seat was empty and the sound of the seatbelt was just the house settling, or my mind breaking. I opened the door slowly, air cold against my face. Nothing, just the passenger seat, still and empty, like it had never moved. But I couldn't shake it. The sound had come from somewhere. I thought about calling Jess, or my sister, or anyone, but I couldn't, not yet. Not until I figured out what was real, and maybe that was the trick. The thing that made my mind twist itself into knots. Reality had stopped being trustworthy. The street was quiet, houses dark, the moon hidden behind fast-moving clouds. But the weight of that sedan, that presence, felt heavier than ever. Every creak of the car, every gust of wind sounded deliberate, purposeful. I pressed my forehead against the steering wheel, wishing for answers. And then I remembered something. The first night, in the Dollar Tree lot, the way I kept glancing at the car, the way I told myself it was nothing, the contradictions, the lies, and suddenly I realized maybe it wasn't him in the car that night. Maybe it was me. I shook my head, denying the thought. No, impossible. But the seed had been planted. What if I'd imagined the sedan the entire time? Or worse, what if I'd been the one following someone else? I checked the rearview mirror again. Empty street, no headlights, nothing. And yet, I felt it. The same cold weight pressing on my chest, the same unnerving certainty that I wasn't alone. I tried to rationalize. It's my mind, I said aloud. Just stress, paranoia, everything twisting together. But the voice sounded hollow. I didn't believe it, and I knew it. A soft creak from the passenger side door made me jump. Slowly, my hand reached toward the door handle. My fingers trembled so badly I almost dropped the keys. Nothing. The door was closed, locked. And then I thought I saw it. A flicker in the corner of my eye. The white of a seatbelt snapping across the empty passenger seat. I froze, breath shallow, pulse racing, and I whispered, barely audible, "Who's there?" No answer, just silence. Thick, heavy, suffocating. I've replayed that night in my head countless times. Some versions end with the door opening, a shadow leaning over me. Other versions, I drive inside, lock every door, and stare at the seat, empty, yet somehow still occupied. People ask me why I tell this story at all, why I confess all these contradictions, all these gaps in memory. The answer is simple, because someone or something needs to know. Someone needs to see the truth that I can't fully face myself. Sometimes when I close my eyes, I see the sedan again. Not behind me this time, not on the street. Inside my driveway, parked in the passenger seat. Watching, waiting, and maybe, just maybe, it's always been me, because the car doesn't follow. It doesn't chase, it doesn't leave. It waits, and it knows, and I think I've finally realized. It doesn't matter if it's him or me. The lines between observer and observed have already blurred. The white sedan is everywhere I am, every glance in a mirror, every shadow in the corner of my eye. And some nights, I think it's the only thing that remembers me at all. Story number 5. I swear I wasn't the crazy one that night. At least, not until he said my name. But maybe I should back up, because if I tell you everything, you might start to wonder if I'm lying, the same way the cops did. I know what you're already thinking, that I made it up, that I wanted attention, that maybe I was just tired and lonely, and imagined the whole thing. And maybe you're right, but then how do you explain the way he said my name? I never told him my name. That night started the way so many of them did. Dollar General runs at stupid hours, the kind of late where the streets in my town go dead quiet. My apartment was a block away, and when you live in a place this small, the Dollar General feels less like a store and more like a holding cell. Fluorescent lights buzzing overhead, the smell of cardboard and cheap detergent hanging in the air, every aisle perfectly still, like it was waiting for someone to disturb it. I'd worked odd jobs, late shifts before, so I was used to the silence. Still, there's something unnatural about being in a store after hours, even when the door's unlocked. The place hums, but it doesn't breathe. I remember pushing my cart past towers of cereal boxes, their mascots grinning down like they knew I didn't belong there. And then there was him. I hadn't noticed him at first. Not really. He was behind the counter when I walked in, head bent low like he was reading something under the register. But when I glanced back, I caught it. The smile. Not a big grin. Not the kind of polite nod cashiers usually give you. No, this was smaller, thinner, like a secret pressed between his teeth. "Evening," he said, soft. Hey," I mumbled back. That was it. Just that. At least, that's what I remember. I took my time with the shopping, dragging my sneakers along the polished floor, letting the cartwheels squeak a little too loudly. The aisles were empty, the shelves stocked but lifeless. In towns like mine, the Dollar General is one of the only places open past 10. But that night, it felt like I was intruding on something private. Like the store wasn't supposed to have customers at all. I tried to shake it off, tried to tell myself he was just bored and awkward. But I couldn't shake the way he kept popping up in my line of sight. Not directly, no, he was smarter than that. I'd catch glimpses, the curve of his shoulder in the reflection of a freezer door, the shift of his hooded head near the end of an aisle. Always there, always waiting. By the time I made it to checkout, my stomach was tight. He stood behind the register, motionless, hands resting flat against the counter. His hood was up, even though the store was warm, shadowing his eyes. And that smile, that same secret smile, was still stretched across his face. "Find everything you need?" he asked. "Yeah," I said. My voice cracked. "Yeah, I'm good." He scanned each item slowly, like dragging out the moment was more important than getting me out of there. The beep of the scanner echoed too loud in the silence. Beep, beep, beep. Each sound was a hammer against my ribs. And then, God, I swear this is true, he said it. "Have a good night, my name." I froze. Every bone in me went cold. I hadn't given him my name. I don't wear a name tag. I don't have it on my credit card. At least not the nickname he used. It was personal. The version of my name only my mum and a few close friends ever called me. I tried to laugh it off. Tried to play casual. Did I tell you that?" His smile didn't change. His voice stayed calm. "Of course you did." "No," I said, a little sharper. "I don't think I did." "You must have." That was the whole exchange. Just those words. But it was enough to rattle something deep inside me. I grabbed my bag too fast, nearly tearing it, and hurried toward the door. But I couldn't help it. I looked back once more. He was still there, leaning against the counter, smiling. And I swear to you, his lips moved, just barely, whispering my name again. Maybe I imagined that part. Maybe. By the time I stepped outside, the air felt different. Thicker, colder. The parking lot was mostly empty, just 2 cars sitting under flickering lamps. The asphalt gleamed faintly with leftover rain, puddles reflecting the harsh yellow glow. I clutched the bag against my chest like it might protect me. I told myself to breathe. Told myself it was nothing. That in a town this small, maybe he'd just heard my name around. People gossip. People know things. That had to be it. But the whole walk home, I couldn't stop hearing it. His voice, soft and steady, wrapping around my name like it belonged to him. I didn't tell anyone about it the next day. Not right away. It sounded too paranoid, too fragile. And honestly, I thought maybe if I kept quiet, the whole thing would dissolve like a bad dream. But it didn't. Because the next night, he was there again. Same shift, same hood, same smile. And when I walked through those doors, it felt less like I was stepping into a store, and more like I was stepping into a trap. I need you to believe me when I say this. He didn't follow me out of the store, at least not that I saw. And yet somehow, when I reached the parking lot, I swear he was already there, standing under the light like he'd been waiting the whole time. The lamps in the Dollar General lot are sick things, flickering, buzzing, struggling to burn through the dark. 2 cars sat near the back, half soaked in shadow. The asphalt still shimmered with patches of rain, and every step I took splashed louder than I wanted it to. At first, I tried to convince myself it was just my nerves. that maybe I'd caught a glimpse of someone else, some stranger heading back to their own car. But when I blinked, adjusted, I saw him. The hood, the stillness, the way he didn't move until I noticed him. And then, of course, he smiled. I froze halfway to my car. My keys felt sharp between my fingers, clenched too tight like I could stab the night itself if I needed to. "Nice night, isn't it?" he said. His voice carried too far, too clear, like the empty lot wanted me to hear it. I wanted to scream at him, to ask how he knew my name the night before, but instead what came out was weak. "Do you need something?" He tilted his head. "I thought maybe you did." That answer made no sense, none, but the way he said it, calm and steady, made me doubt myself. Like maybe I had said something to him earlier and forgot, like maybe we'd talked before. "I know you think I'm exaggerating, that I'm playing this up to make it sound scarier than it was. But listen, my whole body felt like it was buzzing, and yet I couldn't move." His smile wasn't wide. It wasn't forced. It was patient, quiet. Like he had all the time in the world to wait for me to catch up. I tried to walk past him, muttering something. God, I don't even remember what. My steps echoed too loud, but then I heard it. He whispered my name again. "Soft, just for me." "Stop," I snapped, turning. Don't say that." "What? Your name?" "Yes, why? Isn't it yours?" That's the thing about his words. They sound harmless when I repeat them now. Simple. But in the moment, it was like he was peeling me apart with them, layer by layer. I rushed to my car, fumbling with the door handle. My reflection in the window looked pale, distorted under the light. When I finally yanked the door open, I half expected him to lunge forward to grab me, but he didn't. He just stood there, smiling. "You'll see me again," he said. And then, this is the part nobody believes, he walked away, not toward the store, not toward a car, just into the shadows beyond the lamps. And when I tried to follow him with my eyes, he was gone, like he dissolved into the dark. I sat in my car for 10 whole minutes, hands gripping the wheel, heart banging so hard it hurt. I thought about calling the cops, but what would I even say? Some cashier smiled at me and said my name. They'd laugh me off. They'd tell me it was nothing. So I drove home, slowly. Every shadow felt like it might hide him. Every set of headlights behind me felt too close. When I finally locked myself inside my apartment, I told myself I was safe, that maybe I'd misheard, that maybe his name tag or a receipt or something had my name on it. Some stupid mistake. That's what I wanted to believe. But then my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Just my name. That's it. No punctuation. No explanation. Just my name. I dropped the phone. My knees buckled. How could he have my number? I never gave it to him. And before you ask, no, I don't use those stupid rewards apps where cashiers can look you up. I didn't give him anything. I didn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the glow of the parking lot, his figure leaning just beyond the light. I kept checking my phone, waiting for another message, but none came. The next morning, I tried to convince myself it hadn't happened, that maybe someone I knew was messing with me, pulling some cruel joke. But when I walked past Dollar General on my way to work, I saw him, through the window, at the register, smiling. I keep telling myself it didn't happen the way I remember it, that maybe I dreamed half of it, that maybe I was already spiraling from the text and just imagined the rest. But if that's true, then why do I still wake up hearing footsteps behind me? The night it happened, I swore I wouldn't go back to Dollar General. But you have to understand, I didn't have a choice. It's the only place in town open late, the only place within walking distance from my apartment. And I thought maybe, if I acted normal, it would all feel normal again. So I went back. The store looked the same as always. Buzzing lights, 2 quiet aisles, shelves stacked high like sentinels. I told myself not to look at him, not to give him the satisfaction, but when I stepped up to the counter, he was already smiling. "You came back," he said. I gripped my basket tighter. Of course I did. It's just a store. His smile didn't change. "It's not just a store to you. What's that supposed to mean?" "You know," that's all he said. Just, you know. And maybe I did. Maybe I knew exactly what he meant. And that's why my throat closed up. I paid in silence, staring at the register screen, waiting for the beep of each scan. Beep, beep, beep. But when he handed me the bag, his fingers brushed mine, cold, deliberate, and he whispered my name again. I bolted. The air outside was heavy, the kind of night where the sky hangs low and every sound carries too far. I speed walked across the lot, keys ready in my hand, but halfway to my car, I heard it. Footsteps, soft, steady, matching mine. I spun around. He was there, not behind the counter anymore, not locked inside the store. No, he was out in the lot, hood up, walking straight toward me. "What do you want from me?" I shouted. He didn't answer, just kept coming, slow, measured steps, like he wasn't in a hurry, like he knew I had nowhere else to go. I turned and ran, my shoes slapped against the asphalt, splashing through shallow puddles. The lot stretched out longer than it should have, each lamp flickering like it was about to go out. I yanked at my car door handle, fumbling, missing the lock again and again. Behind me, his footsteps grew faster. "Don't," my voice cracked. "Don't come closer!" I finally flung the door open and dove inside. My hands shook too hard to jam the key into the ignition. He was closer now. I could see his reflection in the rearview mirror, his hooded figure moving steadily, calmly, like this wasn't a chase at all, but something inevitable. The key slid in. I twisted. The engine sputtered. Stalled. No, no, no. I slammed the wheel, tears stinging my eyes. That's when he spoke, voice muffled through the glass. "You know me." I froze. My fingers hovered over the key. "What?" "You know me," he repeated. I shook my head. "No, I don't!" "Yes," he said. His smile widened. "Just a little, just enough. That's why you're scared." I don't remember deciding to move. 1 second I was frozen. The next, I was out of the car, sprinting across the lot toward the far edge, away from the light, away from everything familiar. My breath burned, my chest ached, but I couldn't stop. His footsteps followed, always steady, never rushed. It felt wrong, like he didn't need to run, like he already knew I wouldn't escape. I cut behind the dumpster at the back of the store, pressing myself into the shadows, trying to quiet my breath. The stink of rot filled my lungs. The night pressed down heavy, for a moment silence, then tap, tap, tap. Knuckles against metal, slow, deliberate. On the other side of the dumpster. "I like the way you run," he said softly. I nearly screamed. Instead, I bolted again, cutting through the grass behind the lot, slipping in the wet earth. My hands scraped raw on the gravel. I stumbled, pushed forward, stumbled again. Every time I glanced back, I swore I saw him. Closer, closer, smile unbroken. By the time I reached my apartment building, I was sobbing. I fumbled my key at the door, slamming it shut behind me the second I got inside. I pressed my back to the wood, listening, praying I wouldn't hear footsteps on the stairs. But there was nothing, just silence. I stayed like that for hours, waiting, but he never came, at least, not that night. And here's the part I hate admitting. Nobody else saw him. Nobody. Not the cashier before him, not my neighbors, not anyone. When I finally told a friend, they laughed, said I was just paranoid, said maybe I had a crush I didn't want to admit. But I know what I saw. And sometimes, when I walk past the Dollar General now, I swear I still feel him watching. Still hear my name whispered soft, like it belongs to him. So tell me, did I make it up? Did I imagine all of it? Or am I just telling you the parts I can bear to say out loud? Because if I told you the truth, the whole truth, you wouldn't sleep tonight. Story number 6. You're not going to believe me when I say this, but the first text from her came 3 months after the funeral, and it wasn't from her number. It came from mine. You ever hear someone's voice when you know they're dead? No, scratch that. Let me start over. I didn't hear her voice that night. Not at first. It was just the phone, buzzing in my pocket, even though I swear I'd left it on the counter in the break room. That's the kind of thing you should know, right? Where your phone is. But grief does that. It makes you unreliable, foggy, like you're watching yourself from across the room. Or maybe I'm lying to you. Maybe I'm lying to myself. Anyway, I work at the Dollar Tree in Silver Pines. Midnight stocking shifts mostly. Everyone thinks retail's hell when the store is crowded. Believe me, it's worse when it's empty. The aisles breathe in this weird way. The fluorescents hum like they're chewing on your nerves, and the air feels stale no matter how much the AC blasts. Sometimes I'd stand there with the box cutter in my hand and just think about how many nights of my life I'd carved into cardboard. After she died, Emma, I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat either, couldn't stop replaying the hospital beat that never beeped again. So yeah, I picked up every overnight shift I could. My manager thought I was being responsible. I was just hiding. That night was like any other. I was down aisle 6, surrounded by paper towels and dish soap, when my phone buzzed. I remember freezing, the blade of the box cutter pressed against the tape of a carton. The buzz came from my pocket. Except, I'd swear on her grave that I'd left it in the break room plugged into the wall. I pulled it out anyway. Screen lit up. A soft glow against the sickly green light above me. One new message. No contact name. Just a number I knew by heart, though I hadn't dialed it in months. Emma's number. The text said, "You left the light on again." Now, here's the thing. I live alone. Nobody had a key, and Emma used to tease me about forgetting the lamp by the couch, always scolding me, playfully but still. "You're gonna run up the bill, babe." That kind of thing. So I told myself it was a prank. A cruel one, yeah, but still a prank. Maybe some carrier glitch, some recycled number. I even laughed right there in the aisle. My voice sounded too loud, bouncing off shelves of off-brand cleaner. But here's where it gets tricky. Sometimes when I tell this story, I say, I laughed. Other times, I don't remember laughing at all. Sometimes I say I dropped the phone, screen cracking on the floor tiles. Other times, I tell myself I slid it back into my pocket, hands steady as stone. Which version do you believe? Because I don't even know which one's true anymore. I do know this. I kept working. That's what I always do. Pretend nothing happened. Push boxes down a silent aisle until the silence feels like it's pressing back. Minutes, or maybe hours. Later, another buzz. This one I remember clear. My heart punched at my ribs, and for a second, I thought it was just the freezer kicking on. But no, it was the phone again. Second text. Same number. Same impossible sender. Why aren't you answering me? I should have blocked it, thrown the phone in the dumpster behind the store, called the carrier. But instead I typed back, "Who is this?" It felt ridiculous. My hands were shaking, and the words looked wrong on the screen, like a stranger had written them. I stared at those 3 dots, the typing bubble that shouldn't have been there. And then her reply, "Don't lie to me, I can see you." Now listen carefully. I don't know where I was standing when that text came through. In some versions, I'm still in aisle 6. In others, I've wandered to the front registers, staring at the dark glass of the doors like something might be waiting outside. Once, I even remember being in the break room, though I couldn't explain how. The point is, I don't trust my own memory, and you shouldn't either. But this part I swear on. When I looked up from the screen, the aisle lights flickered. Just once, quick enough to make me doubt it, long enough to make me feel like I wasn't alone. I called out, "Don't laugh at me." "Emma!" My voice cracked. The shelves swallowed it whole. No answer. Just the buzz of another message. Stop pretending. And here's where the first real crack in my story comes in. Because sometimes I tell myself I threw the phone across the floor, that it skittered into the shadows, screen shattered, conversation dead. Other times I swear I pressed the power button and shut it off, shoved it in my pocket, and went back to work like none of this ever happened. But then again, if that were true, how would I remember the third message? Because there was a third. Look behind you. I didn't. Not right away. My hands were numb, box cutter still clutched tight, like I could stab grief in the chest and watch it bleed out. I counted to 3, then 5, then 10. Finally, I turned. Nothing. Just a row of neatly stacked bleach bottles, their caps glowing ghost white under the light. That's when the contradiction sets in again. Sometimes I tell myself I left, dropped everything, and ran out into the parking lot, gulping night air until my lungs hurt. Sometimes I insist I finished my shift, clocked out at 7 a.m. like usual, nodded to the manager on her way in. But if either of those things were true, why do I still hear the buzz of the phone, even when I'm not holding it? Why does my apartment feel like aisle 6? Fluorescent hum echoing through the walls, shadows stretching too far across the carpet. I can't tell you if I was at Dollar Tree that night. I can't tell you if the messages were real, but I can tell you this. The phone still remembers them. And every time I scroll back, the words are there, burned into the screen like scratches on glass. And sometimes I catch myself typing back, "You're not supposed to hear the dead breathe." That's how I know something's wrong with my memory. Because sometimes I swear I heard her breathing in aisle 6, soft, ragged, familiar, right after that last text. Other times, I tell myself it was just the air vents, but vents don't whisper your name anyway. Let me explain. The phone didn't stop buzzing after that night. Maybe it never did. Maybe it's still buzzing now, and I just don't feel it anymore. But the day after, when I came back for another shift, the aisles felt different. Like they knew something I didn't. Stocking shelves is supposed to be mindless. Slice box, stack items, repeat. But I kept glancing over my shoulder, waiting for another message, another flicker of light, waiting for Emma. It was around 2 a.m. when I heard it. At least that's the version I believe today. A voice, a woman's voice drifting low between the aisles. My name, drawn out, stretched thin like it hurt to say. Now here's where things get messy, because sometimes I say I dropped the box cutter right there, metal clattering against the tiles. Other times, I remember gripping it tighter, convinced I'd need it. And there's another version, the one I don't like to admit, where I walked toward the sound smiling because for a second, I thought she'd come back. "Emma?" I whispered. Silence. Just the hum of lights and the faint hiss of the soda fridge at the back. I told myself it was nothing, maybe a radio left on in the office. But then it came again, closer this time. "Why aren't you answering me?" The same words as the text. That's when I saw movement at the end of the aisle. A figure, dark, shifting, gone when I blinked. Except I wasn't alone. See, I didn't mention this before, but there was another person in the store that night. A co-worker. His name was Jared. Quiet kid, younger than me. Always wore his headphones half off one ear. He was supposed to be in the stock room. But when I looked up, there he was, frozen in the middle of the aisle, staring at me like I'd just spoken to thin air. "What did you say?" he asked. My throat went dry. "Nothing," he frowned. "Sounded like you said Emma." I wanted to deny it, but the syllables still lingered on my tongue. "Emma." The name I wasn't supposed to say out loud. The name that belonged 6 feet under. Jared didn't push. He just shoved his hands in his hoodie pocket and walked past me, muttering something about the vending machine. But I swear his shoulders were tense, like he'd heard more than just my voice. Like maybe he'd heard hers too. Or maybe I'm remembering it wrong. Maybe Jared wasn't even there that night. Some mornings I wake up convinced I dreamed him, invented him just to make the story sound less insane. But then, why do I remember his shoes squeaking on the linoleum, fading down the aisle while I stood frozen? The voice came back after he left. This time clearer. Stop pretending. I spun so fast the shelves blurred. Nothing. Just row after row of discount goods, staring back at me with plastic smiles. The phone buzzed again in my pocket. I'm here. I swear I nearly dropped it. My pulse hammered in my ears, and for a second, I thought I heard Emma laughing, the way she used to when she caught me in a lie. But the sound stretched too long, too hollow, echoing where no one stood. I whispered, "What do you want from me?" No reply, just silence that felt heavier than words. Here's another crack in the story. Sometimes I remember Jared coming back then, catching me talking to my phone like a lunatic. Sometimes I picture his face pale, eyes wide, asking me who I was texting. But other times, like right now, I'm sure he never returned, that it was just me, alone with the shelves and the buzzing phone, trembling like the fluorescent lights overhead. I don't know which version to give you. Maybe all of them are true, maybe none are. What I do know is this. When I finally looked at the phone again, there was a photo waiting. A new message. Not words this time, but an image. It was the break room. My break room. Same crooked poster of workplace safety. Same dent in the locker door I'd kicked weeks ago. And in the middle of the frame, me, sleeping. Now I need you to understand, I don't sleep at work. Not ever. I can't. But there I was, head slumped against the table, phone at my side, mouth open like I'd been out for hours. I stared at it until my vision blurred. The timestamp said it had been taken 10 minutes earlier. 10 minutes I couldn't remember. Maybe that's when Jared saw me. Maybe that's why he looked so spooked. Or maybe Jared was never there at all, and the truth is uglier, that I lost time. That I blacked out. The air grew heavier, like the store itself was holding its breath. I shoved the phone in my pocket and ran my hands down my face, trying to wake up. The shelves tilted, the lights flickered, and I swear the aisles stretched longer, pulling away like some nightmare corridor. Then, whispered, soft, right behind my ear, "Turn around." I did, and that's the moment I can't explain, because depending on which version I tell, I either saw nothing, or I saw her, Emma, standing there in her hospital gown, skin pale as the bleach bottles, eyes too dark to belong to anyone living. I think I screamed, or maybe I didn't. Maybe I smiled again, but I'll tell you what I know for certain. When I blinked, she was gone, and the phone buzzed with one last message. "You're not supposed to be here. You ever notice how your own home can turn on you? I mean, one night it's familiar, safe, and the next it feels like a stranger's house. That's how mine became after the last text. You're not supposed to be here." Sometimes I tell myself that meant the Dollar Tree. Other times, I think it meant my apartment. I'll be honest, I don't remember the drive home. One version of the story says I went straight there after clocking out, heart still pounding, headlights cutting through the Silver Pines fog. Another version says I stayed in the parking lot for hours, staring at the cracked screen of my phone, waiting for it to buzz again. And then there's the version I don't like admitting, where I never left the store at all, where maybe I'm still there right now, pacing those aisles and only dreaming I made it back. But let's pretend I did. Let's pretend I walked up the creaky steps to my apartment, fumbling with the keys, breathing too hard. The first thing I noticed was the light. I'd left the lamp on in the living room, the one Emma used to nag me about. "You'll run up the bill, babe." But here's the thing, I know I'd switched it off. I remember pressing the button, hearing the soft click, and yet there it was, glowing warm through the window like someone was inside waiting. Inside, the air was heavy, stale, like the place hadn't been opened in weeks, even though I'd been there the night before. I tossed my keys on the counter, told myself I'd shower, sleep, forget the whole thing, but the phone buzzed again. One new message, same number, same impossible sender. "I miss you, and God help me," I answered. "Emma, what do you want from me?" 3 dots appeared, then vanished, then appeared again. The waiting was worse than the words. Finally, the reply, "Come into the bedroom." Now, I need you to understand, the door to that room was already open, and the lamp inside was on too, flooding the hallway with gold light. That's when I heard the knock. 3 sharp raps on the wall, not the door. Like someone tapping from inside the apartment next to mine. My neighbour, her name's Mrs. Dwyer, retired, nose always in my business, called through the wall. "You okay in there?" I froze. She knocked again, harder this time. I heard talking. My mouth went dry. I wanted to tell her I was fine, but which version would I give? That I was texting a dead girl? That I was answering a voice only I could hear? Instead, I stayed silent. Mrs. Dwyer's voice softened. "I thought I heard Emma." The phone buzzed again before I could even react. "She can't help you." I swear my knees nearly buckled. I pressed my back to the wall, clutching the phone like it might bite. The lights flickered. The hallway stretched long, longer than it should have, shadows spilling out of the bedroom door. I should have left then, should have bolted down the stairs and never looked back. But grief doesn't work like that. Love doesn't work like that. Sometimes it traps you, convinces you that if you just step a little further, you'll get them back. So I went into the bedroom. The bed was made, too perfectly made. Emma never tucked in the sheets like that. On the pillow, lying dead center, was my phone charger, the one I kept in the break room at work. Except my phone was still in my hand. That's when the lights blew out. Not all at once. First the lamp in the living room, then the one in the hall, finally the bedroom. Pop, pop, pop. Darkness swallowing the apartment, one room at a time. The phone screen glowed in the dark. New message, lie down. I told myself no. I told myself I wouldn't. But when I blink, sometimes I see myself stretched out on the bed, eyes closed, phone clutched to my chest. Other times I remember standing there, frozen, refusing to move. And in the ugliest version, the one I wake from in a sweat, I remember lying down willingly, smiling as I pulled the blanket over myself. Mrs. Dwyer knocked again through the wall. Louder this time. "Who are you talking to?" I opened my mouth, but the answer didn't come from me. It came from right beside my ear, Emma's voice whispering like static. "He's talking to me." I think I screamed. Or maybe I laughed. Maybe both. The phone buzzed again. "Stay." And this is where I lose the thread. Because sometimes I say I woke up the next morning in bed, sunlight slanting across the sheets, phone dead beside me. Sometimes I insist I never made it to morning, that the night stretched on, endless, the buzzing never stopped. And sometimes, like tonight, I wonder if I ever left that room at all, because the lights in here, they keep turning on by themselves. The lamp, the hall, the bedroom, even when I unplug them, even when the bulbs burn out. And the texts keep coming. "You left the light on again." I don't know if I'm haunting her or if she's haunting me. But if you're still listening, if you've made it this far, then maybe you can tell me, because I don't trust my memory anymore. I don't trust the phone, the lights, the aisles, or even this story. All I know is this. When the lights flicker, I hear her breathing. And when they go out, I'm not alone in the dark.